Hey guys, okay, well, it's not Monday, but I'm going live because last Monday or this past Monday when I tried to go live, it just didn't it just didn't feel great. And I like to share all of the things that I want to share, and I wasn't able to do that just because I was in a hurry. And the last 2 Mondays I've been traveling when I intended to hop on. And so I wanted to hop on tonight and talk about in a little bit more depth how we can make writing meaningful for our learners. And that's not an easy task. So that's one of the things that I really wanted to mention that I didn't mention on Monday, or I don't think that I did, is that I definitely don't want to send the message that teaching writing is easy, because oh my gosh, it's one of the most difficult things to do. And so as we kind of jump in and talk about writing, even if you don't teach writing, don't hop off or don't think, this isn't for me, because we're going to talk about what is right every content area and how can you find practical ways to make it meaningful for your learners. You guys know one of the things I say all the time is that if what we're doing in our classroom isn't meaningful for our learners, it's a waste of our time and theirs. And so the same applies with writing. If we can't find a way to make it meaningful for them, they're not going to want to do it. It just is what it is. But if we can find ways to make connections, if we can find ways to make it meaningful for them, we have a much better chance of them wanting to invest in the learning. So let's kind of talk through this. The first thing that I want to kind of address and talk about is, why don't our learners like to write? What is it about writing that they do not enjoy? And I think the first thing is really plain and simple. Writing is a lot of work. It's not easy. I have to write often, whether it be a blog, whether it be a book, whatever that is for my job or for my career. I will be super honest and tell you guys that I don't enjoy writing all of the time. There are times when I really like it and I can get into a flow, but for the most part, writing is not something that is super easy for me to do, and I will procrastinate it until I am blue in the face, because I want to avoid it, often because I know it's going to be a lot of work. So I think we just have to acknowledge that and be honest with our learners sometimes. Look, writing is a lot of work. You have to invest in it. It's not like solving a math problem, even though math is a lot of work for a lot of learners. I get that. But here's the second reason that I think our learners don't always enjoy writing, is that writing, you are really starting with nothing, right? It's a clean slate. It's a blank piece of paper. And so helping them understand, how do I take this blank piece of paper and turn it into something that represents what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling or what I want to share? That can be super intimidating. Where when you think about math, science, social studies, oftentimes there is content there. There's a word problem. There is maybe there's a problem on fractions, or there is a water cycle. There's something to start with, but with writing, it's a blank piece of paper staring back at you. And so one of the things that I love about technology is that it really gives us an opportunity to do some things that we have not been able to do before. I think it's such a cool time to be an educator, because you guys have access to some of these tools in your classroom. So I found this quote. I absolutely love it. Writing is thinking out loud, but only the paper is listening. And so that's from Terry Hack. And I don't know if I'm saying his last name correctly, but he's over on TeachThought. And so I'm going to actually drop some of their articles below tonight with this video, whether you are listening to this on the podcast or you're watching on YouTube Live, in the comments or in the show notes. I will make sure that I include these links, because there are some awesome articles over on TeachThought about writing. So when we think about this quote, writing is thinking out loud, but only the paper is listening, that's intimidating, right? I'm putting my thoughts down on this piece of paper and it's listening to me. So I think sometimes when we think about that idea of starting with nothing and how do we help our students, start moving in the right direction, consider letting them talk it out first. So the voice typing tool over on Google Docs is awesome for that. So you know what? So how many of our students say, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do first. You know what? Why don't you hop on Google Docs, start recording, and just start talking, and just start sharing whatever it is about this topic, whatever it is about this idea, this concept that you would want to share if you were sitting here talking to me. What would you want to say? And let them just talk it out. Google will do the writing for them and start to understand, oh, wait, writing is just like me talking, but it's doing it on paper. And so then it's acknowledging all of the things that have to happen along with that, right? It has to make sense. You have to have correct punctuation, grammar, all of those things. But one of the hardest things to get past with writing is that starting point. Where do I start? What do I write first? I think the third reason so many of our students don't like to write, whether it be in English language arts or any other content area for that matter, is that they lack the confidence to do so, right? How many kids say, I don't know how to write. I'm not a writer. I don't know where to start. They don't feel like they have the tools to be a really great writer. And so they would just rather not write. I think that's why, using mentor texts and things in your classroom where your students can actually hear and see and experience different types of writing, that's why that's so beneficial, because it builds for them to become writers. Does that make sense? So I love this quote. I just think it's really important that we acknowledge those three things. Writing is a lot of work. When you are writing, you are starting from nothing, and writing is often difficult because of that lack of confidence. So as we kind of move through this, the first thing, after we talk about, we've talked about how writing isn't easy. Oftentimes our learners don't enjoy it. I think it's important to acknowledge that writing should happen in every single content area. So think about it this way. If I don't enjoy writing, and the only place that writing happens is in my writing class, I'm going to have a disconnect there, right? I'm not going to enjoy that class. It's not going to be somewhere that I want to share a lot of my work. And so thinking through that, it's important that we find ways for our learners to write in every content area. So you think about a student who loves science. If I can encourage that learner to write in science class, now there's a reason to invest in writing. Think about a student who loves history, loves social studies. If I can connect writing to that passion or to that thing that they love, all of a sudden I'm onto something. And the reality is that doesn't have to be a content area, right? We all know I love Genius Hour. I think it's so important that we give learners an opportunity to pursue their passions during the school day. And so having them write during that process, connecting writing to their passion, that's huge, because now all of a sudden, like I said, there is a reason to invest. So I think it's important to say writing does not, and so many of you I know this and do this in your classroom, but writing does not have to be about writing. It can be an opportunity to reflect. It can be an opportunity to share their plan or to share their idea. So helping them see that writing is kind of a bridge between the idea being here and then being shared out with other people. And so really making it a priority, we have to start doing that. There's no way, and any writing teacher or English language arts teacher will tell you, students will not learn to write if they are only doing so in writing class. It just doesn't happen that quickly. It has to be woven into everything that they're doing. It's that whole idea of, cross-curricular, letting them practice, writing skills to do the things they need to do in your class. Very important and really easy to do. It's just being intentional and purposeful about that. Thinking about, as you're designing those experiences for your students, can I give them an opportunity to write today? And if I can, how am I going to connect that to what we're doing? What does that look like? And how can I make it really authentic so it doesn't seem forced, if that makes sense? If it's just really, hey guys, we've got to practice in every class writing, so I'm going to get it today. Nope, definitely not meaningful, and they're not going to want to do it. But if I can instead weave it in seamlessly to what we're doing and it seems authentic, bingo, right? We have them where we want them, and we can move them toward seeing writing for what it is, which is an opportunity to share your ideas, share your thoughts, get a point across, whatever that is that they're writing about. Okay, next, writing should be meaningful. And I'm going to share some tools with you guys here that I think you can use in your classroom, but understanding what is meaningful for these guys. I think about, when we think about writing with pen and paper, we know that that's something they have to do, something they have to learn how to do in school. But what does writing look like for them beyond the walls of the classroom? If we're honest, texting is a form of writing, right? They may not use the best grammar. They may not use punctuation of writing. You think about your students when they hop into chat rooms on their video games. That's a form of writing. Social media, whether they are writing a tweet, whether they're probably not, a lot of them aren't there, but if they're on Instagram, if they're on Snapchat, sharing those thoughts and sharing those ideas, getting that point across is a form of writing. They use a lot of images. There's no doubt about that. But getting that point across is for sure, writing plays a role in that. So those things are meaningful to them. So how do I weave that in? I think it's so important that we understand that we have to find ways to connect to their right now. How do we understand who they are, what they want to learn, and how they can learn it? And how does that play well with whatever it is that we have to teach them and what they have to learn? I believe so strongly that all of that doesn't have to be one or the other. So thinking about those things that are meaningful to them, what does this look like? I think there are some amazing tools out there. And I want to say, writing is not my specialization. I just wanted to come on and share some of my thoughts. So as I share some of these tools, I know that you guys have so many other types of writing that you have to teach. I know there are specific things they have to be able to do when they're writing, but these are just some options for getting them started. So one of the first things that I want to share is photoprompts.tumblr.com. I don't know if you guys have seen this. I talk about it often because I think it's such a great way for our students to start to learn how to kind of get those creative juices flowing. Like, where do I start? And I think the best place to start with some of our learners is to give them a really engaging, really cool writing prompt that they can get excited about. And that is exactly what this is. So I'm gonna hop over to the website, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit till I get to some of the really cool prompts. So you kind of have to go through, but you'll see they'll start popping up here. And I love some of these prompts. So for younger students, this is awesome. Tell this story. And they just have to start fresh, right? Like, just, hey, tell me why you think umbrellas are falling from the sky. That's a really cool writing prompt. And it kind of gets them, it's engaging. It makes me kind of think and wonder. And so then I have a springboard for starting this writing process. And sometimes a visual or an image is that springboard that they need in order to start writing. If I'm looking at just a writing prompt on a whiteboard, and then I'm looking at just a blank sheet of paper, gosh, I mean, it's just like I have nothing to go on. But if you can just give them a picture to kind of start with, that's not a bad idea. So let me scroll down and show you a few more. I love this. Tell the story of your first pet from the perspective of that pet. So if you work with gifted learners, or maybe even not, a lot of you know about depth and complexity icons. And one of those icons is multiple perspectives. So there's lots of writing prompts around that. If you are, let's see. So I love this one. Your story must include a crime-fighting snail. So if you're listening to this on the podcast and you can't see these, you for sure want to check this out. And you can just hop on and scroll through. Tell the story of Pac-Man from the perspective of the ghosts. That is awesome. That's so much fun. But you see where I'm going with this. This is a great way for them to figure out, what does it look like for me to have an idea and use an image to kind of use as a springboard, like I said. Okay, so that is photoprompts.tumblr.com. Now, what I want to show you is writingprompts.tumblr.com. So very, very similar to photo prompts, but instead, these go a little bit deeper. They're a little bit harder. So I think these are really great for upper elementary, middle school, and high school students. I would say you always want to look at these before you choose one. I wouldn't be scrolling through here with your projector on, because you just never know what's going to pop up. I don't think there's anything inappropriate. It's just a word of caution. Been there, done that. So as you scroll through, you'll see there are lots of these. I'm going to actually go to like page 4 so that you can see some of the really cool ones. They always add to these. So it's like every time I go to share them with an audience or share them with people, I have to go further and further back to share some of my favorites. It would be a good idea to just screenshot and have them easily accessible. But I want you guys to see what it actually looks like when you are in the website. Okay, I think this is the page. All right, so I love this prompt. It's a picture of 2 refrigerators, and one has tons of vegetables and fruits, and it's kind of halfway organized, and then the other one just has tons of takeout trays, and it's weird. There's an American flag in there, right? Like, what in the world? But that really makes me start thinking. So you can't see at the bottom, it's kind of blurry, but it says the owners of these 2 fridges go on a blind date, tell the story. That is an awesome prompt. That's fun to think about, right? And it helps them understand details. So I'm looking for the details in this. I'm comparing and contrasting. There are so many things that you can address in this one photo prompt. I also love this one. Which door would you go through? And they have a picture of the Narnia door, Monsters, Inc., Hogwarts. And so it asks them, which door would you be most likely to step through, and why? And then what happens when you step through that door? So they're having to really imagine, and they're having to come up with a story. So such a great way for students to learn how to tell a story and to learn to make a decision. Just so many great things here. And what I love about this is that it ties to so much of what we need them to do anyway, both in class and beyond the walls of the classroom. And anytime you're able to do that, anytime you're able to connect what you're doing in class to something that they're going to use beyond the walls of the classroom, it is a win-win for sure. So that is writingprompts.tumblr.com. So I'll drop these links below, or whether it be in the comments or in the show notes if you're listening to this on the podcast. But photo prompts and writingprompts.tumblr.com. So if your school blocks Tumblr, it's a good idea to go and screenshot these, screenshot the ones that you want, drop them into a Google Drive, or a Google folder in your Google Drive, so that you can then go access them and use them when you need them. Does that make sense? So you guys that are on, feel free, if you have questions or anything to share, feel free to put those in the comments. Okay, so one more thing that I want to show you is actually from Ian Bird, and I'm a big fan of his website because I do a lot of work in the GT world, gifted education, and he has a ton of stuff on his website. But one of the things that he has is called the emoji prompt generator. Well, when you talk about emojis, you are definitely speaking their language. So I want to show you really quickly what that looks like. Let's see if I can get to it really quickly. There we go. Oh, it's like popping up, and then I'm just going to find it this way. You guys will have the link. But this is the random emoji generator. So on your screen, you can see that there is an emoji there. And when I click and then, another emoji comes up. Again, this is from birdseed.com, Ian Bird. Such a great tool. I think this is great for young learners or young writers, just getting them to start that storytelling process. So, hey, you guys, I have 5 emojis up on the screen right now. And I want you to tell a story based on what you see. So using these emojis, you can't, you can't substitute or anything else. You have to fit all 5 emojis into your story. So you can see here, there's 2 trains. And so they might have to tell a story about a train coming and going, or whatever that looks like. But getting them to think beyond just writing for the sake of writing to tell a really cool story. But when you use something like emojis, you're connecting to their right now. And that is what makes learning meaningful for them. So I love emojis, and you can keep going, right? You could keep adding to these. And so you could make it harder and harder. So I think this is I always talk about engaging your students as soon as they come into class in the first 8 seconds. So regardless of what content you teach, this could be that engage piece. Hey, you guys, as you come in, I have an emoji story up on the projector, and I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I just want you guys to tell that story, or I want you to hop on your blog and I want you to write that story. Whatever it is, however you want to do that, but using this tool is very cool, and I think something that is powerful, because when we use things like emojis, we are speaking their language, and the more we can speak their language and make connections to their right now, the better off we will be. Okay, so those are some really great tools that you can use, and we're going to talk about a couple of other tools shortly. One of the other things that I want to say is that when we think about writing, I think it's important that they receive more feedback than grades. Writing is personal, and putting a grade on that is difficult. because when your students write, regardless of what it's about, it's personal, right? They're sharing their thoughts, they're sharing their ideas. And so to give that a 65 or to give that a really low grade is hard and could impact them in a not so great way. I'm not saying there's not, I know you guys as writing teachers, or regardless of what you teach, have to sometimes grade their writing. I'm not saying there's not a place for that. I'm just suggesting that could we offer more feedback versus grades when it comes to writing. So one of the ways that you can do that is using Google Docs. And I'm actually going to, in the comments below, share a great article from TeachThought and how to use Google Docs in a way to give your students feedback after they have written. So they've written their story, and then you can go in there and give the feedback that you need to give. So another great way you can do ways to use Flipgrid. I absolutely love that tool, and I think there are so many ways that you can use it in your classroom. So let's kind of talk through this for just a second. If you are going to use Flipgrid to give your students feedback on their writing, so they write their paper on paper or on their device, whatever that is, they turn it into you. You could then hop onto Flipgrid. Stay with me here. Let me show you what this looks like. You would hop onto Flipgrid, and when you are logged in, after you create your account, you'll have a teacher dashboard. And if you haven't heard of Flipgrid, oh my gosh, you have to check it out. It's amazing. I have tons of articles, blog posts over on my website for you guys to check out about how to use this to clone yourself so that you can be at more stations than one, how to send yourself home with the homework so that your students are able to understand the homework once they get home. Those are all over on my blog. So you just go to andymcnair.com, click on the blog, and then you can even search Flipgrid and it'll pull up all of the posts that I've written about that particular tool. All right, so here's what you would do. You're on your dashboard and you would click Shorts. And you guys that are watching are going to have to see all of these. This is me demonstrating Flipgrid for educators. All right, so you would click Record a Short, and then you're going to actually do that, right? You would record your video, and then after you are done recording, I don't know what's going to happen here with the sound while I'm recording. Okay, you record your video, then you click Next. While I'm recording, you take a picture, and then it will actually give you a QR code for the video that you've recorded. So you record your video, you go find that. Now here's your QR code. So what if you hopped on and you gave your student that for that particular writing piece, you went on and you shared your reflection or your feedback for them. Hey, this was a really great, you did a great job. Here are some things I noticed. Here's what I thought you did well. Here's what I think you could have done better. And then attach that QR code to the writing assignment so that they have personal feedback, right? You don't have to meet with every single one of them, but using this, they get to see you face to face. They get to hear your feedback, see your facial expressions, and realize that what you're doing is really helping them, supporting them, giving them what they need in order to move forward. So I think using Flipgrid as a feedback tool for writing, very, very powerful. You just connect that. You could just attach that QR code. They would scan it and they would instantly get your feedback. I love that idea. I think it makes so much sense and such a great thing to use in your classroom. Wow, that was a lot of information. We went through a lot for sure. So I want to say a couple of things as we wrap up and we think about writing. You know, some of the main points that we talked about are that a lot of our students don't enjoy writing. And I just want to say that that's okay. They don't have to enjoy writing. You shouldn't feel like a terrible teacher just because you can't make your students love writing. They're never all going to love it. You're going to have students who write just because they have to. They're never going to write because they want to. And there's nothing wrong with that. Do they still have to learn some of the skills? Do we need them to know how to write? Of course. But do they have to be able to do that? Does it have to be something that they're passionate about or something that they enjoy? I don't think so. So as we kind of wrap up and kind of go through these, that's important to remember. I also think that it's important to remember that writing isn't easy, but it can be fun. So when you think about those photo prompts, those writing prompts, and that emoji generator, those are just some cool ways that you can make writing fun. And it should be. Writing should be fun. And so there are times I know that it can't be, it's not hard. Can we find ways to make it a little more engaging than it has been in the past? Of course. I think that it is just, I just think it's important to acknowledge that writing is not easy to teach. It is something that they have to practice all of the time. So kind of a recap, writing should happen in every single content area. Writing should be meaningful, and writers should receive more feedback than grades. So thinking through those three things and the practical things that I've shared in this, what does that look like in your classroom? Whether you teach math, science, social studies, algebra, geometry, AP, whatever it is that you teach, how can you weave writing into your content area so that it is authentic, so that it's meaningful, and so that your students are able to make that connection to seeing that writing is an opportunity for them to really talk to the paper and to really get their thoughts out there and to share those thoughts. All right, so all of that being said, I want to share a couple more things before I hop off. Next week, I'm really excited because we're going to start a series of the Facebook Lives, and it's going to be on the 8 C's of engagement. So if you haven't heard of the 8 C's of engagement, I talk about them a lot because I think engaging this generation of students is not always easy. And I know that when I was in the classroom, any ideas I could get to engage them as soon as they walked into class, I was all about. So we're going to spend probably about 4 weeks going through these 8 C's of engagement and talking about practical tools that you can use in your classroom to make those a reality. So I'm super stoked about that. I think it's going to be lots of fun. Remember, you can always check out andymcnair.com for lots of resources, ideas. You can always go to the blog. I have tons of free things over in the shop that you can check out and just download for free for you to use, whether it be thought partner cards, 4Cs plus 1R stuff. There's all sorts of stuff there. I love to be on Twitter, and I love to learn with people and share on Twitter. So you can always find me there at McNair, AN3. And I would love for you to hop over to the podcast, A Meaningful Mess, and subscribe, share some stars, listen. I love, and if you ever want to be a guest on the podcast, if you have something you want to share, I'm always looking for people who want to hop on and share those things as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of the Meaningful Mess community. I hope that this was meaningful for you. I hope that it's helped you kind of think through, regardless of what I teach, how can I make writing a priority, and how can I make it authentic and meaningful for my learners? So just like every week, I hope that this has helped you find meaning in your mess. Thank you so much for joining me. Even if you're watching this later, feel free to leave comments below, send me a direct message, comment on whatever, however you're listening to this, and let's get some conversation going around what writing can look like when we take the time to make it meaningful. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon.